pips. The minor arcana is essentially our present day deck of playing cards. The only difference in the tarot minor arcana and our deck of playing cards is that we have condensed the pages and the knights into jacks. Otherwise, they're the same. There are 4 suits. They go from ace to king. The tarot deck, as we've seen already, when we move through the staffs, there is a page and a knight. Today, we have moved into the suit of cups. The suit of cups is happiness. And what we're going to look at is the fact that happiness is our major drive. It's what propels us. This is the card, Ace of Cups. We see, typical of the aces, a hand emerging from a cloud. It's like out of nowhere comes a bit of good fortune into your life that adds some momentum to some of the things that you desire. On the hand is a cup, and the cup is overflowing with waters and yods, which is the grace of God that fall from it. Descending into the cup is the white dove coming in with the sign of the cross, which is divinity or inspiration, or you're catching the wave of the way the universe is moving right now. This is the beginning of the things that we call happiness, joy. And maybe it starts with contentment, and it's not just part of our life. We will see that this is actually the foundation of our life. The Ace of Cups. Cups mean happiness. Not love, but happiness, because love can be a part of happiness. And of course, we would have to, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, defining happiness. What is happiness? And it's something that we all know and we can perceive. It may be a little bit harder to define. What is happiness? It's our basic drive. It's what motivates us and moves us. Studying Kabbalah with my wife, we remember the Rav once pointing out that we don't so much as move a little finger, but to move towards happiness. Emotionally, it seems that in a way we are psychologically simple creatures. We move towards happiness. It's our basic drive. It's the decrease in pain and the movement towards joy. Now, we disguise this a lot. There'd be a lot of people who might say, well, that's not me. I work out of a sense of martyrdom, and I help people, but I receive no joy. That's probably not true. If we looked a little deeper into people's motivations and what they're trying to accomplish and maybe cover up, the movement toward happiness is a universal thing. Our emotions seek happiness, which is kind of a funny statement since happiness does seem like an emotion. But what I mean is the part of your mind that's not under your conscious control. So perhaps I'm talking more about the subconscious. Our emotions or our subconscious seek happiness, and they sometimes play tricks on the intellect. And it convinces the intellect that your emotional desire is actually logic and rational intellect. And there are many, many examples of how some of the things that we hold to be logical truths are actually just our emotional preferences that we have laboriously cloaked in a semblance of logic and rationality. I remember a song once, and this sort of gives me a sense of what happiness is. Somebody looking for happiness went on quests and pilgrimages to find happinesses, to find happiness. And the end of the song was happiness is like losing your car keys and looking for them and searching for them and discovering that they've been in your hand the whole time. I think the key is that happiness is not a thing in and of itself. Happiness is the byproduct, usually, of an activity. To search for happiness as an end won't work, and it may lead you into the dead end of temporary happiness, where what you're pursuing really is a kind of ecstasy that doesn't last very long. And we can see happiness sometimes as a dead end if it's, we see in the streets people using drugs, and it seems to be a hellish experience, but inside they must be receiving some form of happiness, and alcohol for some people can do that. And then there's also the insanity, the so-called village idiot that walks around in a constant state of giggling and joy. Manic joy versus happiness is something that we have to think about because they're not the same thing. Back to cups. It's happiness in its many forms. Our natural and our ever-present aim and purpose is happiness, no matter how much of a martyr we may think we are or how depressed we may think we are. The Ace of Cups, it refers to some activity in your life that can make you happy. If you receive the Ace of Cups, it says there is a favorable tendency in your life right now. There's something that you should pursue. And remembering that the aces are in the realm of Keter. When we look at what Keter is, he is everything in potential. It's not manifest until the next Sephira Hakma. The cups are a little bit like that. There is a tendency that there is a swelling or momentum that will work for you. And where do you put your energies? Search your life for the thing that makes you most happiness. And this card suggests that this is a time to act on it. And of course, action, we're going to come up with that again and again, is a necessary part of what will create happiness. It suggests there's a favorable tendency in your life right now at this moment. You will look into your life and say, what would heal old wounds and make you happy? This is the opportunity that exists in your life. Take action in this direction. And again, happiness is not a passive thing. You're not going to wait for it just to happen, unless, of course, you go to the insanity, drugs, alcohol route. We're talking about something deeper, longer lasting that will serve you in your life and not just get in your way. You have to sort of, at times with happiness, be a bit selfish and mildly hedonistic, in the sense you have to think about what brings you joy, not what you should be doing now or what your responsibility suggests you should be doing. It's a selfish realization, and this will be an internal thing. You'll just look and dissect your life, reflect, and decide where the deepest joy in your life comes from. That's the area where you have to take action. So far, it's an idea, but as we've said, the card suggests that there are energies that will support you. There is discrepancy, and that's a really key thing to remember. There's a saying that all unhappiness comes from discrepancy. Discrepancy is the difference between things. And in this case, it's the difference between what you think, and the way things really are. All unhappiness is caused by discrepancy. As I said, it's a difference between the way you think things should be and the way things are. If you want to turn the unhappiness of discrepancy into happiness, you have two choices. Number one, change the way you think, and that might be lowering your expectations because your expectations are just too high. They don't coincide with the reality of the situation. The other thing you can do is change the thing that's making you unhappy. And that may be possible and it may not be possible, especially if the thing you're trying to change is just fine in itself. It may be the case that your expectations are wrong. Don't know that for sure. The place to start is to look at real and permanent lasting happiness, and that it is a byproduct of activity. The second thing to realize is that things are seldom as good as we would want. And if that's ever the cause of our unhappiness, I think we have to give ourselves a little shake and look at the lives of other people and just take our lenses of gratitude and see what we have. The Ace of Cups is a card that happiness is going to enter your life by you taking action and having the introspection to know what will provide you with lasting happiness. Why don't we turn to some of the questions now?
Why are the supports in the water? They're blue, and it looks like it's suctioning up water.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it. To me, the cup is like a fountain, and it's giving off jets of water that fall down to the water below, which is your subconscious and your imagination, always in the cards. Falling down are yods, which are the universe is working with you right now.
Why is a hand coming out of the cloud?
That's typical of all the aces, and we can look at it as the hand of God, or we can look at it as the manifestation of the cause and effect of the universe. We're somehow tapping in to an energy that is going to work with us right now. Uh, the easiest way is just to say that at this moment, there seems to be some divine guidance and some divine energy that's going to move your plans in the direction that you want.
Why are the aces in the highest sephra of Keter?
The aces are number one, and Keter is number one. They coincide for the first 10. As we've mentioned in the Tarot by the Tree system, the 11 is suspended, and the next 10 cards, 12 to 21. The aces are the one card, they're in the one place, and they share an aspect of Keter that it's potential. Keter is everything that you can imagine and everything else. And it doesn't exist in reality. You can't touch it or see it. The Ace of Cups is a little bit like that now. This is the chance for happiness building up on perhaps the grain or spark of happiness that you already have.
Is happiness the same as joyful ecstasy?
No, not at all. And we've mentioned that. To live in a state of joyful ecstasy would be like the village idiot. You don't want to go giggling and dancing through life. It would be a superficial thing. And we talk a lot about people delving too much into themselves and not expressing themselves outwardly enough. And that would be one. If you were in that kind of a state, it would be a very introspective thing. And I would liken it to the drug experience or something like that.
Are we supposed to be happy all the time?
Well, that's a layered question. Are we supposed to be anything? or maybe we just are what we are. And if we were happy all the time, we would just consider it normal. We wouldn't even recognize happiness anymore. And as I said, happiness is not a thing of itself, it's a thing that comes out of activities, and it would be impossible, it would be undesirable. And no, happiness all the time would be a flat existence.
You take it for
You
granted.
take it for granted, absolutely.
What about depressed people who don't have happiness?
Depressed people seek happiness exactly the same way as people who aren't depressed. There may be a lower level of what they achieve in their seeking, but they still desperately crave just an inkling of contentment and even a little bit of happiness. And they're constantly trying just to find a little corner in their universe where they can experience some of that. The drives are exactly the same. Uh, Depressed people all often just don't feel much happiness, and I'll probably mention this again, but happiness is like the gas in the tank of a car. You take happiness away from a person, and it really reduces the amount of energy that they have to do anything.
What kind of activities bring happiness?
Well, I think that it's just got to depend on the person. Some people like to go into a ship and sail around the world in either boring or torturous conditions, and that brings them joy. I think the common thread is that these people are doing something. There may be a case to be made for meditating under the lotus tree, but I don't think that's a prescription for how you should live your life.
Is an ace of cups a guarantee of happiness?
Absolutely not. The Ace of Cups is a very subtle indicator that there is something in you, and you have to do an inventory of your feelings. What is right now, what is making you feel joyful? The card suggests that now is the time to take some kind of action, to find some kind of an activity that will immerse you in that, and that in a sense, there's energy just waiting to propel you as long as you take the first step.
Should we pursue happiness above all other things?
Uh, Again, where do we get these shoulds from? There's not like a big human handbook or anything like that. And secondly, that train has already left the station. We already do that, whether we know it or not. Even in our dark moments when we're expressing our martyrdom and our deep sadness, we're always moving towards happiness. We are already motivated. As I said, I have heard that we don't move a little finger unless it moves us towards some aspect of happiness. We are very lazy and simple creatures that way.
And happiness could be as simple as just being comfortable. That's why
Absolutely,
you're
yes,
moving that finger because you want to be more comfortable.
exactly. Yeah.
Is happiness about laughter?
No, and again, we've talked about this ecstasy, this giggling. And laughter will very often accompany happiness. It's just the way smiling, the way energy does, the way motivation does. Uh, it is part of it. Yeah,
And there's that saying, somewhat make it till you fake it till you make it, which is if you're smiling a lot, it kind of it does change you despite yourself.
yeah, and I think you touch on something that we've mentioned again and again, that there's an element of personal action to happiness. The idea that happiness will find you is a nonsensical saying. Happiness isn't wandering around in the ether or hoping to alight on you. Happiness is something that you create through action, and hopefully you have good fortune in it. It takes energy to begin, but in the end, it gives you energy.
Well, hello to Adriana. She's with us again
Oh, hi,
today.
Adriana. Nice to
Um,
see you or
and
hear from you.
enjoying the real talk.
Oh, great, great.
What happens to a person who doesn't have much happiness left in their lives?
And we all know people like that through sickness or loneliness or lack of funds or housing. There are so many people that have just the dregs of happiness left in their lives. What happens to them? Uh, as I said, happiness is to some extent the gas in your gas tank, and a person who is almost devoid of happiness is going to have very little motivation or energy, and the prognosis isn't good. It would take help from other people or just an immense amount of effort on their part to even break out of the inertia of that kind of sadness.
Final thoughts.
Um, Acceptance. Uh, there's the talk about in Buddhist thinking, life is suffering, and that doesn't mean that we should seek suffering or just give ourselves up to suffering, but it just means that we shouldn't have it in our heads that we should not have any suffering. The idea of acceptance, we talked about discrepancy. Um, you don't have to lower your standards, but maybe we all have to accept things the way they are rather than trying to manipulate them into our version. And that's it for today. That's our entryway into the cups. And we'll move on to the twos next day. Thanks for joining. See you soon.